Marcus Ericsson is a Swedish IndyCar driver who formerly raced in Formula 1. Starting his racing career in 2000 in karts, Marcus Ericsson made his car racing debut in 2007, when the same year he got the British Formula BMW title with Ford Tech Motorsport. After winning the title, Marcus Ericsson would then move to the British Formula 3 Championship, where he finished as one of the top rookies. Then moving on after that, Ericsson would then go to an All Japan Formula 3 Championship Series in 2010, where he won the championship, being a rookie champion. After the championship win, Ericsson then went GP2 driving for Supernova Racing, winning a single race. He would then continue his GP2 driving with iSport Racing between 2011 and 2012, and then driving for DAMS in 2013. Marcus Ericsson would then make his Formula 1 debut at the biggest stage, the Australian Grand Prix in 2014 with the Caterham F1 team. Now Marcus Ericsson was no stranger to Formula 1 racing, as he was the Braun GP test driver in 2009. Driving for Caterham F1, Marcus Ericsson had Kamui Kobayashi as his teammate. Going into the Australian Grand Prix, Ericsson would qualify P20 and would run as high as P11 in the Grand Prix, but would sadly retire due to car trouble. After the Australian Grand Prix and that powerful one before retirement, Marcus Ericsson's rookie season was fairly quiet. It was announced on November 1st, 2014, that Marcus Ericsson signed a deal with the Sauber F1 team. Going into the 2015 season, he would finish P8 in the Australian Grand Prix, marking the first points finish of Ericsson's career and also the first points finish in Formula 1 by a Swedish driver since the 1989 season. Marcus Ericsson would get his first taste of late qualifying as he got into Q3 for the Malaysian Grand Prix. He would then retire in the race, running inside the top 5 at one point. It was then announced late on in the season that Marcus Ericsson, along with teammate Felipe Nasr, extended their contracts with the Sauber team for 2016. The 2016 season going on to early 2018 were career downs for Marcus Ericsson, struggling heavily. Marcus Ericsson's struggles would then be gone though, as he got a P9 points finish in the 2018 Bahrain Grand Prix. That was his first points finish since the 2015 Italian Grand Prix, with a total of 49 races spanning in between. Marcus Ericsson would then put up inconsistent finishes, being out of the points for a majority of those. It was then announced before the 2018 Russian Grand Prix that the Sauber team has replaced Marcus Ericsson, putting Antonio Giovinazzi in the seat, moving Marcus Ericsson to the third driver role. That was the last taste of Formula 1 driving that Marcus Ericsson would have in his Formula 1 career. Multiple points time finisher, but never finishing on the podium and just below 100 Grand Prix entered. It was then announced on October 30th, 2019 that Marcus Ericsson would be moving to IndyCar, staying in the open wheel spotlight. Marcus Ericsson would sign a deal driving for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, going into the 2019 season, where he would finish 17th in the points standings. Going into 2020, Marcus Ericsson signed with Chip Ganassi Racing. Now, Ericsson was a pay-to-race driver, being there mainly for his money, his financial backing. Overall, that is something that has been seen a lot in the recent years of racing, but overall has been around in the auto racing spotlight for several years, several decades up to this point. Many people, though, did not think that Ericsson was deserving of the seat at Chip Ganassi Racing, a team in the auto racing world that is hailed to be one of the best on the planet. Going into the 2021 Detroit Grand Prix, Marcus Ericsson had a very solid career with Chip Ganassi up to that point, but was still missing one thing: an IndyCar win. Things would change though in the 2021 Detroit Grand Prix, where he would bring home the checkered flag for Chip Ganassi Racing, his first career IndyCar win, and his first career win in any auto racing series since 2013, when he was racing GP2s. 2022 was already a high note for Marcus Ericsson going into the season. He was seen as a week in and week out race contender, being very dangerous. Going into the Indianapolis 500, Marcus Ericsson was not a favorite to win, but many people saw him as a contender. Leading just 13 laps in the Indy 500, Marcus Ericsson would take the lead late in the race when a caution came out, which would lead the race to end under caution. Marcus Ericsson was then crowned the 2022 Indianapolis 500 champion. The Indy 500 win marks the fourth win for Ericsson in that historic race, also marking him as the second Swedish driver to win it, next to Kenny Block, who won the Indy 500 in 1999. Marcus Ericsson is now and forever will be an Indianapolis 500 champion.